I was starting to get nervous, not gonna lie, alright? Because this OKC Thunder team was reaching a level that was seriously pissing me off. And not because they may or may not get away with some of the most egregious fouls in the history of the sport, or because they can sometimes be what the cool kids call being corny these days, but strictly because of the fact that this is a really high functioning and well executed team. They're just simply too dominant.
RC, Dio, Mina, I'm worried about the NBA. OKC is on the verge of making this season that I was looking very much forward to very boring. They're just that dominant.
We all know about Shea, who I'm just basing off the numbers, maybe the closest thing to Michael Jordan that we'll ever get to witness, but then surrounding him you have a plethora of all kinds of different weapons, who could basically all be on the all-defensive team if Adam Silver wanted to, be good at his job for once. And with the NBA heading over to Vegas for what's now the third year of the NBA Cup, which to me still seems like another huge cash grab in this capitalist society, if you were the guy that was locked in and following this tournament throughout, it seemed like a pretty foregone conclusion that this was basically gift wrap for OKC to take home. But the scriptwriters forgot one tiny detail.
Victor Wembanyama is expected to make his return to action on Saturday against the Oklahoma City Thunder in Las Vegas in the NBA Cup semifinals.
It would have been easy for the Spurs to just hold Wemby out for over the weekend and ensure he was fully healthy heading into past the Vegas games. But nah man, they had other plans. And despite being thrown into the fire and knocking off a fair share of rustiness, even on one of his bad days and playing on a lingering calf, his impact was so large on this game that it was enough to overcome one of the best teams in NBA history. In the beginning of this game, with Wemby riding the bench, it was pretty clear and obvious what the Thunder's game plan was, as they were selling out to protect the paint and daring the Spurs to beat them from outside. In fact, 12 of the first 22 shot attempts for San Antonio came from past the three-point line, but the biggest issue on the offensive end was that OKC just did not respect Luke Kornet at all. And that's no disrespect to the Green Cornet, alright, because he's a really good player. But here, for example, after he rolls to the basket, he finds himself wide open, yet nobody on either team even cares to acknowledge him, which leads to a turnover. And because he's basically a non-existent threat as an on-ball scorer, the Thunder could get away with switching guards onto this matchup, and the Spurs didn't look to punish them inside whatsoever. For example, watch how Holmgren can first abandon Kornet so that he can help out and prevent the Spurs from a layup, so an easy 2 points somehow turns into a contested three-pointer. Sometimes there were possessions where they would simply just ignore him, and with Wemby not in the game, it was helping OKC's job on defense become a whole lot easier, basically playing 5-on-4 on that side of the ball. So Mitch Johnson decided to experiment with a small ball lineup to close the quarter, with the tallest guy on the floor being Harrison Barnes at 6'7". But even though the idea of this move was to in theory stretch the defense so the Spurs could have more space to then play one-on-one, this was actually something that played right into the Thunder's favor, because playing one-on-one defense is actually their specialty, and the Spurs didn't have enough shooting to make them pay for any overhelp, and as a result, San Antonio scored just 20 points to begin the ballgame. And they couldn't just wait any longer to let this chance at 500K slip away like this. So it was time to unleash the alien.
14. And he's getting a great reception from the crowd. A lot of people here to see him. Here's the impact he's had.
Now, if I'm being completely honest with you, I didn't even think Victor Wembanyama played that well during this game, in terms of making smart decisions and picking apart the defense. But despite being a turnover machine during this matchup, he was without question the most impactful player on the floor. And it's the little things I want to show you guys to make him one of the best players in the association. Off the rip, we saw the pressure he was putting on the offensive rebounds as he towers over 3 defenders here for the putback, and then the very next possession, he's again battling on the glass, just ragdolling grown men into securing extra opportunities. And these were the first 2 plays of Wemby's return to action, generating 5 points in less than a minute, which is 25% of their first quarter total for all my elementary school graduates out there. But like I previously mentioned, it was still overall a very rusty quarter for Wemby's first game. I mean, throwing him in there against this OKC team is like teaching a baby how to swim after you throw him in a pool, if that analogy makes any sense. But the second quarter is going to be key for the latter half of this ballgame, so I want you guys to pay close attention to a couple of things here. Number 1, notice how the Spurs are extremely intentional about placing Wemby in the low man spot. For example, here as Cason Wallace simply jogs through the baseline. Well, even though these players aren't even close to the action, Wemby tells his teammate to switch onto his man on the perimeter so that he could take the corner and then roam around the basket. And the second thing is watch how much defensive attention the Thunder are forced to give Wemby. On the rebounds, for instance, they have to commit 3 bodies, and it therefore results in his teammate getting open for 2 free throws. But notice how the defense is covering him in post-up situations, because Victor on the catch is going to immediately see a double team. So again, it didn't lead to much production in these second quarter examples, but something to keep in mind as we continue to watch this game. Wemby then checked out as the offense fell apart, with OKC once again just completely ignoring Kornet. And on this play, notice how he clogs the paint on 3 different drives, which all leads to misses because of the extra help in the key. And then when Victor came back in during the last couple minutes, he does a great job on defense making his presence felt inside, and then guess who's the first one to beat everyone down the floor? It's the biggest guy out there, which then takes away this defender's attention and opens up Dylan Harper for layup to cut the deficit. Not a great 2 quarters scoring wise, just 4 points for Wemby. But his energy and effort alone helped the Spurs claw back into the NBA Cup, and the second half is where he finally found his footing to then dominate the Thunder on both sides.
Stan Dwayne, Wemby's a plus 20.
His first possession, battles in traffic, offensive rebound on his second possession that leads to it. Look at this defensive possession, everybody getting involved, and then Dylan Harper right to the rim, great.
Wemby came off the bench again, but the Spurs found a groove on offense, running the same play over and over, with Kornet setting a flare screen with a strong side exit, which made OKC pay for when they did leave Kornet to go help. And the results weren't always this picture perfect for the Spurs, but they did manage to score 3 straight times running this play, which allowed Wemby to come in the ball game and build on this lead. He continued to wreak havoc on the defensive side of the ball, as the Thunder didn't even try to challenge him whenever they saw him camping in there. And same exact concept we saw in the second quarter. After Victor finds himself matched up on the outside, well, as soon as the ball swings to the other side of the floor, he then calls for his teammate so he can switch into the low man, as he helps on this drive and forces Shea to turn it over. In contrast, when Shea surveyed and saw Kornet sitting down there was no fear at all attacking the basket, and when OKC went with a more shooting-oriented lineup, this was another huge area where the Wemby impact was on full display. Somebody in the comments might need to fill me in on this Wemby-Chet beef I've been seeing. But as OKC tries to pull Wemby away from the rim, the same tricks that once worked on Kornet were then useless, because Victor can slide his feet to get in front of Holmgren to swallow the shot. But at some point during this game, they were gonna have to get Victor going on the offensive end, because yes, he was impactful, but not so much in the scoring department, and give credit to the Thunder, because their game plan centered around putting smaller guys on Wemby, and then converge on him, which was effective because first off, it exposed Victor in his high dribble whenever he put the ball on the floor where the small guys can go attack him. But it also allowed their big man to kind of play as a free safety, where because he didn't guard Victor, he could clean other mistakes. However, basketball at the end of the day is a game of counters, and with one small adjustment that was inspired by this possession, where Wemby just discarded his defender like he wasn't even there, the Spurs made a change that allowed Victor to take him to the promised land.
It's bigger than you. That's all this boils down to.
Now, Wemby was obviously struggling in a couple key spots, when he caught the ball deep in the post, and when he caught it beyond the 3-point line and had to beat his defender off the dribble. So, the Spurs decided to completely change his touch points, and had him receive all of his actions at the charity stripe. With 2 shooters parked in the corners and another one passed away, OKC suddenly couldn't send help, which allowed Wemby to attack in true one-on-one situations, and doing so without ever having the need to over-dribble. Offensively in the fourth quarter, this was the difference, with the smaller guys despite playing good defense just couldn't reach Wemby on these jump shots. And here, for example, if they tried to stop Wemby by cheating over to show help, that created open shots for the other Spurs to punish OKC for leaving dumb.
I'm just glad to be a part of something that's growing to be so beautiful and so pure and ethical basketball, you know.
So the numbers tell the story best, because though this was not Wemby's best game by any stretch of imagination, he still dominated arguably the best regular season team of all time, on a decently bright stage. If that doesn't scare you, then I don't know what to tell you. But it really wasn't about the box score when you look at the tape and how different OKC treated the Spurs when Wemby was in versus when he was out. When he was on the bench, the Thunder weren't even threatened by anybody else, and even opted to leave some players open on most possessions. But when he was in there, then the Thunder had to expend extra resources to shut him down, because whenever they didn't, they suffered, and Wemby would completely dominate.